we're going to take our next part of exponential functions and we're going to talk about growth and decay. So when we're talking about an exponential function, is a function, it's a formula. So your term 0, you have a couple things you need to know about. This is the formula, and your A is your starting amount, and it's your y-intercept. Your B is the growth factor, or whatever you're multiplying by, and then you have x for an exponent. So there's a couple things to remember about growth and decay. So this is your formula. Growth is if B is greater than 1. It's decay if B is between 0 and 1. So that's how you can tell if it's between 0 and 1, it's decay. If it's greater than 1, it's growth. So the growth rate and decay rate tells us the percent something is growing or shrinking. So again, what you're going to do is if it's growth, you're going to find the rate by taking whatever your number is minus 1. And if it's decay, you're going to take 1 minus whatever your B value is. And growth factor is just a number used in the equation, so it's what you multiply to get to the next number. So let's get started. So for this, we're going to look at all the information that's provided. And for our equation, we see a number right here that's outside. That is your A, which is your y-intercept, or your initial amount. And now we're going to look here at B. Since B is greater than 1, we know it's going to be growth. So your growth factor is everything in the parentheses, which is 1.42. But to figure out how much you're growing by, we're going to take our total minus 1, and that's going to give us 0.42. Now remember, in order to get to the percent, you have to move this 2 spaces. So we'll have 42% growth since this is greater than 1. All right, the next one we're looking at is this equation, and our starting term is 300 because that's where A is. And then we have B, which is inside, and if we notice, B is 0.64, so that's going to be decay. It's getting less. All right, so since it's less, we're going to take 1 minus 0.64, and that gives us 0.36. So remember, we're going to move the decimal twice, and we'll get 36% decay. All right, I want you to try these on your own. And then we're going to go to this next one. So for this one, we're working backwards. So it gave us 150 as the initial amount. So I know that's going to be my A value. All right, and we know it's growth, so we know it has to be greater than 1. And this is let's see, what did it give us? Oh, it gave us 7%. So remember, we're going to take this and go 1, 2, which gives us 0.07. So since it's growth, we know it has to be bigger than 1. So we get 1 plus 0.07. And this is what our B value is. And then X, we just leave because X and Y are your points on the graph. All right, I want you to try these. And then we're going to look at this one because this one's a little different. So a couple things that are the same is your A value, which is your initial, is 6. And then here, this is tricky because if you notice, you take 2/3 as an exponent. So when you put this into your calculator, you're going to take and you're going to raise that to the 2/3 power. So when you raise this to the 2/3 power, you're going to get 1.08. So that's your growth factor. And then remember, for this, you need to take 1.08 minus 1, and then you're going to have 0.08 for growth. And then 1, 2, so that gives you 8% growth. So we're just working backwards, but the tricky one was you had an exponent right here. So just be careful when you're entering that in. All right, and go ahead and try that one. And then on this side, now we're just practicing. So it says growth factor is the same as the common ratio. You can multiply a previous number to get the next. So we're just completing a table. So we're starting at 100, and what this is telling us is you're going to multiply by 1/2. So if you multiply by 1/2, you get 50. Multiply by 1/2, you get 25, and continue the pattern. So that's all we're doing. And then for this one, you're given an equation. You have to fill in the information. And in this case, your starting term is 500. It is growth because this is greater than 1. And the growth factor would be your B value minus 1, which is 0.12. And that would be 12%. That would be 12%. Look at that, which is growth. All right, I want you to try these. And then I did this table for you. All right, so table to exponential function. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the information on here and we're going to change it into an equation. So we know our starting point is 2, so that's your A value. And now your common difference, remember to find your common difference, you just take this over that. So if I were to do 1/2 divided by 2, right, 1/2 divided by 2, that's the same as saying 1/2 times 1/2, because you have to flip it and then multiply. So your common factor is 0.25 or 1/4, and so that's either way works. So you can put 0.25 in here, or you could put 1/4 in there. Either works. All right, I want you to do this one, but I gave you a little bit of a hint because you're going to take 1 over that. So, whoops, 1 over 0.5. So remember, if you're dividing by 1/2, you're multiplying by 2. So go ahead, I want you to try that one. And then this one is kind of a tricky one. Beth and Tim were asked to write an equation for the following sequence. Who was right? So I just set up a table. And then with this table, I'm trying to figure out our starting point was here, was Tim. He said 25. And then according to Tim, we're multiplying by 2 each time. All right, so that works. And then for Beth, she said that our first term is going to be 50. Well, your first term is 50. And we are doubling it to get to the next term. So actually, both are correct. And here, I just put down here, if we were to say your 0 term in this case, so if this is the first term, this is 0 term. If we were to put 0 in there, we'd end up with 25 anyways, because anything, remember, if you have a negative exponent, you have to flip it. So you would take 2 over 1 and make that 1/2, and that's where we got that. So either works, and they are both correct. So I want you to go ahead and try that one, and then that is growth and